Hi everyone, this is Christina, the Crafty Chemi, and I'm coming to you as a part of a card hop. And what's unusual about this particular hop is that all crafters are invited. So Courtney Kieber organized having people either send her a card for her to showcase, or having a blog link ready, or having a vlog link ready. That way, no matter the format that you choose to share your card, we were all encouraged to join and showcase our work. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm using my platform stamper, and I have a 3 3/4 inch by 5 inch card front made with 110-pound cardstock, and I'm using the You Matter stamp set by Concord and 9th. So the first thing I'm doing is taking that very large rectangular shaped stamp, which is basically going to be the center of the card, and I'm doing a rainbow gradient coming from the top and going down. So right here I'm trying to remove the air bubbles. One of the things I introduced this stamp that I didn't intend was my finger oil, and I forgot to clean it off. So you'll see me struggling with this a little bit, trying to use these water-based inks from Simon Hurley, and here I'm applying Bee Sting. So just making horizontal lines throughout, and here you'll see me fight to put the ink on, and I may even have a bit of a fingerprint on there. But I decided to keep moving with it. The background is actually a bit of a distressed background, so I was okay with the way that the background came out for this project. So the next ink coming out is Traffic Cone by Simon Hurley. It's a nice orange color. And I noticed that I didn't clean the stamp quite well, so I was wiping it off with my finger. And I was applying it. It was hard to apply it in just even strips, so I would end up applying it to the majority of the stamp and then wiping off what I didn't need. So unfortunately, this part is going to go a little slowly. Try as hard as I might, I could really not get that ink to stay on, and I really do think it's because I should have just cleaned off the stamp with a baby wipe and gotten off any contamination that I created when getting out the air bubbles. So you see me try this probably 3 or 4 times. And the best solution I ended up having at the end is accidentally getting the cardstock stuck to the stamp. And by doing that, I was actually able to push the ink onto the cardstock from the back of the card. So it ended up working out in that case. I'm pretty sure I end up doing that with the yellow ink that's next as well. So the yellow ink is known as Slippery When Wet, also by Simon Hurley. I had bought the whole set on sale, and this was my first time using the inks, and I really wanted to use all 12 of them. So that was why I wanted to make this rainbow gradient here, and then you'll see later on I'll add other colors as well around the edges. So what I'm trying to do is just line up the yellow ink so that it doesn't overlap too much with the orange, and it doesn't take up too much space on the bottom of the stamp, because I did want to try and fit 2 more colors in after that. And I did have a bit of trouble, once again, trying to get the yellow ink on there. And I really do think it's just from my fingers touching the stamp constantly. So I don't think it has anything to do with the ink itself, because I've used the ink around the border of the card, as you'll see, and it had no problem at all. So pushing on the card, swinging the door, trying it again, pushing really hard, and then just end up applying it from the back. So that is one of the techniques that is accidental but ended up working really well with this card. So then the next ink coming up is green, and it's the Later Gator. It's a nice vibrant green. And what I tried to do here was mark with my pinky at where I wanted the green to be, and just inked up the entire bottom of the stamp, because I knew I was just going to wipe up the bottom as needed. And even with that bit of marking that I tried to do, still wasn't quite right. So then I just kept adjusting the bottom and the top of the green ink until I got it to where I thought it would form a nice line and blend well. So going ahead and swinging the door, and it applied really nicely, so I didn't have to fight with it on this one. Oh, that and, you know, the technique of pushing the ink from the back of the cardstock always works. And then the last color for this large stamp is Remember Me, which is a nice bright blue. Kind of reminds me of Forget-Me-Nots. And just adjusting my ink so that it blends really well. I actually had a really easy time with this last color. It went pretty well. So there we have my rainbow background. And the next thing I wanted to do was add the You Matter sentiment. So, oh, I apologize. Next thing I wanted to do was try and get rid of some of the ink around my card. I did end up having a bit of the bee sting red ink in the corner there. It transferred from the platform. I made a bit of a mess trying to stamp constantly on the cardstock. So with that being done, get the stamper out of the way, attempt to get some more ink off with my sand eraser, and then attempt to put the sentiment on. So the sentiment's in a nice scripty font. It says You Matter. I thought it would be a good sentiment for doctors, nurses, or patients, and Courtney did mention that any cards that were sent to her would be donated to the Ronald McDonald House. So I did end up sending this to her as well, not to showcase with everybody else's, but just to donate, since I thought it would go to a good cause. So here I'm just lining up the sentiment underneath. I did not want to block the rainbow pattern that I had made. The sentiment was fairly thick, and I thought if I had put it right on that rectangular background, it would just block out one of the colors completely. So here I'm using the Versafine Onyx ink. I wanted to make a really bold sentiment. And what I like about the stamp platform is that if I don't make the best impression the first time around, I can go ahead and stamp it again and it's in the same spot. And what you just saw me do there was put my Inkadinkadoo embossing powder bag on the card so that after I'm done stamping, I can put the embossing powder over it and it won't stick to anywhere except where I want it to, which is where the ink is. So I went ahead and stamped that a second time. I pulled out a scrap piece of cardstock so I could pour the embossing powder over the card and use it as a funnel. And in this case I used a clear embossing powder since I wanted the black to show up. And then you'll see me pull in my heat gun. I'm a bit unusual in that I don't actually have a crafter's gun. I have a regular heating gun that has two settings, low and high. And I found that the low setting actually works fairly well. It melts the embossing powder, it doesn't burn the card, and it does what I need it to do. So I haven't been able to justify buying another heat gun that's for crafting only. But feel free to add in the comments if you think that maybe I should. So here I'm just showing you how the embossing turned out. It's a nice shiny black. And then I'm going to go ahead and funnel the embossing powder back into the jar, get that out of the way so I don't pour it all over my desk because I have done that before and it's miserable. And the rest of these are just going to be heart stamps all the way around. Since I had bought the 12 stamp set from Simon Hurley, I wanted to actually make sure that I used all the colors and see how they looked. And I wanted to try it out on this particular card. So here I'm using Triple Berry, and I'm actually going to speed this up a little bit. And in this case, I'm putting down Clear Sky. And just wiping off in between and getting the stamp all over the card. So the next one is another yellow called Over the Moon. It's a paler yellow compared to what's in the background rectangle. And at this point I was trying to find out, do I have enough room on the left side? And so I decided to start in the lower corner and find my way around from there. So here I put Bee Sting. A nice bright red heart next to the sentiment. And then I decided, well, the top doesn't look symmetrical. And started at the top going there. So this is Overzealous, which is a lighter green compared to the later Gator. And at this point I decided, forget it, I'm going to just try and go all the way around. So then I went with pink with rosy cheeks. And here I ended up using the gray. I always get the Gur and the Wolf confused. They're the gray and brown colors in the Simon Hurley. They also happen to name their dogs after those colors, since one is gray and one is brown. So I'm using Remember Me Again for this particular heart. Okay, and the brown is Gur, so the gray one in the top corner was Wolf. I think I just have 2 more hearts left. I end up doing one in traffic cone. I think the names of these things are actually very cute and appropriate. And then I just do one last heart in red to just keep the sentiment kind of centered between the 2 red hearts. And from there, all my stamping's done using that one stamp set. And then I'm just going off camera, cleaning up my stamps and putting stuff away. That way, by the time the card's done, I'm not putting it into anything messy or making a mess of anything else. So I used a baby wipe, cleaned my stamp, cleaned my platform, and then picked an A2 card that was already made. I have a big block of cards from Paper Studios, and this one's like a charcoal gray. And then I'm just taking my Xyron runner, fixing it because it got a little wonky. Just put it on the back of the card front and then adhering it to the actual card base. And with that, I thought I was done with the card, but I really felt like it wasn't complete. So I did this off camera where I stamped a sentiment that said, "To the world you may be one person, but to one person you may be the world," by Bill Watson. And I thought that was really appropriate with the sentiment as well. And once again, thought it would just be really appropriate for doctors or nurses or patients receiving this card, since it is going to the Ronald McDonald House. So I wanted to thank everybody in the Encouragement Card Hop and Courtney Kiever for letting me join this. Please look at the link below and go to the next hop. I'm sure that the person will appreciate it, and it's really for a good cause and for a good community. So thank you all very much, and enjoy our card hop.